Okay, back on the Esprit, searching for the cause of the antifreeze in the oil. So far, quick compression test and a use of a borescope in each cylinder did not reveal the indication of a blown head gasket. I then checked each cylinder with about 100 pounds of compressed air for leaks into the coolant system, but I found none. I then considered that an internal leak into the turbo could cause the coolant to leak into the oil via the turbo oil return that runs back to the sump, but I disconnected that, and there was absolutely nothing in that line. It was there was no indication of any coolant whatsoever. Then I looked into the charge cooler circuit itself, given the possibility that bad O-rings in the impeller pump housing, which is down here under here, running off the back of the oil pump could potentially allow a coolant to mix with oil. However, a pressure test at 20 pounds over the span of 3 hours revealed no leaks whatsoever. So the mechanical impeller is not the problem, but I will be swapping it out anyway for an electric charge cooler pump. Finally, I decided to pressurize the main coolant system, this guy, to look for leaks that way, but didn't have the correct cap to fit the large reservoir, this guy. So I chose to utilize the existing blanking cap with a bit of a modification, drilled a hole through it, which allowed me to put the pressure tester right through the middle. However, it also freed up this metal disc that sits on the underside of the cap, and when it got bound up on my drill bit, it kind of turned into a high-speed cutoff wheel, and did that to my finger. So 8 stitches and 3.5 hours after waiting at the ER, and a day later, I was able to come back and pressure test the coolant system. At 20 pounds, I had a slow leak of about 2 pounds per hour. I found a small drip coming from one of the lines running into the turbo, situated over there. But after I tightened the clamp that ran to that connection, the drip went away, but I still continued to lose pounds in the system. The borescope, once I was losing those pounds, I stuck it back into the cylinders. There was no visible leakage anywhere inside the cylinders. So what I did is I drained the oil again and left a small glass cup to catch the last bit of oil that was slowly dripping from the oil pan. And I let it just drip there for about a couple hours while I continually kept pressure of 20 pounds. Oop, there it goes. While I continually kept pressure of 20 pounds on the coolant system. I then captured about 2 tablespoons of oil. I brought that inside. I let it sit for a couple hours. When I looked at it a couple hours later, there was no clear water-oil separation in this small amount of oil that I had. But when I tilted the glass, in the trail of where the oil had been, I could see little droplets of clear fluid that would not mix with the oil, and that was, to me, was a clear indication of water. So that leads me to believe that I'm dealing with either a blown head gasket that remains intact around the cylinders, but is leaking between the oil and the coolant passageways. This would obviously allow for decent compression numbers, no coolant in the cylinders, but still coolant getting into the oil sump. Or I'm dealing with a problem with the intake manifold, this guy. So my plan is to remove the intake manifold and inspect for any signs of a problem that would cause leakage. If I find one, I fix it, I put it back together, and I run it. If I don't, I take the head off, and I inspect it, and I replace the head gasket. Pulling the intake puts me about 1/3 of the way, in my opinion, towards taking the head off. So it's a logical progression. So that's what we're going to do. With that, I'll go get my manual, and we'll start taking the intake manifold off this engine. Working in the dark. Just, wow. Those are the injectors that came out. Filthy dirty. And I mean, that's not where the fuel comes out from the side, but yeah, they're dirty. All right, there's the fuel rail. One of the items that have to come off to get the intake manifold off. Got a few hoses and things to disconnect. Okay, last thing for the intake manifold is the manifold itself. Everything else has been disconnected. If it's not, I'm sure I'll find out in a minute or so. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts. tight as I would have expected it to be. Nuts. Those are gonna be no fun to get to. Wow. Might need a special wrench for these guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'd have to get a snap-on 90-degree angle wrench. Just an excuse to buy more tools, I guess. The intake manifold is out. These are the coolant passages, and I don't see a clear indication that those passages were somehow leaking into the intake itself, which unfortunately means likely the head has to come off. Oh well, I had been hoping, but it's a project. So I'll go back to the drawing board, figure out the best way to get the head off. I don't want to pull the engine. I think it's unbolting one of the motor mounts and then unbolting perhaps the exhaust and cranking it up. It's supposed to give you better access to the engine. We'll find out. I will be replacing this mechanical impeller, charge cooler impeller. There's pieces of it inside the charge cooler radiator housing itself. I've cleaned those up, but I'm not going to get another impeller for it. I'm going to blank this one off and hook up an electric, probably a Prius motor. I was told the Prius motor works quite well. Water pump, and so I'll have an electric one. I don't have to worry about it failing anymore. While I'm in here, certainly some cleaning that can be done. Got to figure out how I broke or where this wire broke. I'm sure it was connected to the intake somewhere, and yanked it out. I'll figure that one out. All the other ones got marked. All the other ones are going to be straightforward, but I'll figure out where that one goes. Get my shop vac in here, clean all this crap out too. To prep for the head coming off, I believe I have to set the timing belt back to top dead center, and then I think it's a 90-degree turn backwards to get it so there's no pressure on any of the valves, and the pistons are in our neutral zone. I'll look it up to make certain, but once it's in that position, I could take the timing belt back off and start taking these guys off to get to the head itself. I'm really disappointed. I was disappointed. I'm not surprised, just disappointed. Okay, 90 degrees off top dead center. The white dot here matches to the black pulley there. The white dot there matches to the black pulley there. Lots of oil. That's good. Definitely circulating oil. But I don't know if there's a sequence to taking these off. Let me go look at the manual, see if there's a sequence. Probably not, but it's worth playing it safe. That's not good. That's not good at all. Fuck me. Can't get access to one of these. Oh, I got access, but the bolt's spinning. That's not good. 3 bolts rounded. This one, and one over there. I'll show you those on camera. First I want to put a little dimple right in the middle before I try to drill them out. Good. That's going to be a pain. I'm not going to be able to drill them straight. I've covered the oil passages, so none of this debris can get down there. Plus I'll stick these magnets, I had them in there before. There we go. Wow. Okay, back on the Lotus, trying to drill out these bolt heads. This one and this one I've drilled out. Got magnets to collect the metal. I'm not terribly worried about it though. This is just the overhead cam, and as long as I clog or plug the oil holes, which I've done, nothing should get down into the head. On this side, there's pools of oil. So there's no drains on that side. The oil obviously is designed to fill up so that the cams are always immersed in oil and then sink down the passageways. So I should be good. Shouldn't have to worry too much about metal debris, although there is a lot of it. So I've drilled out this bolt. I've drilled out this bolt. And now I have to drill out that bolt. I've already put a center punch on the head of the hex bolt and hit it a few times. So now I'm going to set up a series of drill bits, getting larger and larger, starting with small and getting larger until I eat through the head of the bolt, which will then free it up. And then I have to undo these. These are just torqued down to keep it from shifting or bending too much. All right, here we go. There we go. Oh, messy, messy. Okay, cam came off. I'm missing one space. There it is. One spacer. I'm supposed to use magnets for this purpose, but I did not. Okay, there's the bolt I just drilled through. Couldn't tell how deep it was. Here is the other one I drilled through, and this one I drilled and was able to get out. So, not bad. Let's go take a look at that hole and make sure I didn't damage the cam housing itself during drilling. Okay. That's the hole I drilled through right there. The bolt is down there. Can't get that out yet. All right. Good for tonight. I got the cam off. Cam housing off. Overhead cam, whatever you want to call it, is off. Have the other one to go, and I'm going to be a little better about that one. I will use a very, very long breaker bar. It'll be a 1/2-inch breaker bar, tapered down to a 3/8 inch drive socket. I'll put a tremendous amount of pressure down on the Torx bolts as I try to undo them with the breaker bar, and I think I'll have more success that way, because doing it the way I did it, I don't want to have to do this again. So hopefully the other cam comes off without any drilling involved. I'm closing up. I'm going to put this in my shop for the night and call it a night. Evo's back for the summer. I just got it out of storage. It's filthy dirty, and of course I had a dead battery when I went to go start it. Fortunately, I was able to take the back seat out and release the rear hatch latch, or the trunk latch, to get access to the battery to charge it. There's the old battery over there. There's the new ones in there. So I'll have a backup. That one will be a backup. But now I've got a stupid airbag light on, which I read on the forums is pretty typical. If you let the battery die, you get stuck with an airbag light that costs a minimum of $250 at Lotus to reset. But a couple of people have posted links to ODB readers that can fool the Lotus and reset it. They can't read the code per se, but you can specify in the ODB reader that the car is a I think it's a Daihatsu or something like that, and then enter the code to clear the airbag light error, and it will clear it. It can't read it. You won't be able to read it and say, oh, there's an airbag light on. You can tell that by looking at the dash, but so probably give that a try. All right, time to remove the head on this thing and see what we find. The biggest problem were the two overhead cams. The one on the very top, I don't know if that's exhaust or intake, but to drill out 3 of the heads of the bolts in order to get that off. And then the lower one, just the rocker cover itself, there's 3 Allen heads and 2 of them had to be drilled out. Other than that, I've opted to leave the manifold on and the turbo on. It was much easier just to disconnect the 5 or 6 lines running to the turbo, as well as 3 17 millimeter nuts right here on that exhaust flange. Used a 17-inch deep socket to do that. I've done all this without removing this bulkhead. It is loosened up because I have a feeling when I pull up on this, it's going to get hung up, or the turbo will get hung up on it. So it's just for extra clearance. I can pull that up out of the way if I have to. The last thing holding this head in are the 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, 10 nuts for the head. And they will get taken off in that order. So let's do it. We'll go back to the beginning and go a bit more. Number 1. I think this is the last. This should do it. All right, all the washers are still on there, so they're going to fall in. Not a big deal. Let's see, will this come off? Well, I guess there's more antifreeze. How heavy? Oh, it's pretty heavy. Damn it. I could really use another hand doing this. What are you hung up on? Washers. Oh, no, you're not. You're hung up on something. I can feel it. So this part of the manifold, when I lift it out, is making contact with that heat shield. That's why it's not coming out. All right, the head is off. These walls are nice and smooth. I'm very happy to see that. There doesn't seem to be any kind of scoring in any of these. Nice and smooth. Same thing down here. Very nice, very nice. Yeah, good. Then, as far as the head gasket goes, it's not showing a physical break anywhere, and I kind of expected this because the compression numbers weren't bad, so there definitely wasn't. I didn't think there was going to be a break between cylinders, and I didn't know if there'd be a break between the cylinder and one of the water jets or ports. But what I do see when I look at this, and I'm not a head gasket expert here, so I'm going to bring it to the machine shop, is I wonder if this is an indication of overheating, and I wonder if this is where I was getting my water. And this is dry, but that was a water jacket hole, and you can see staining running to this, which goes down to the sump. So I'm going to ask him. I showed this to a mechanic. I took a picture of it and sent it to a mechanic, and he said, no, head gasket's not blown. I said, I know it's not physically blown, but what's the explanation for this? This to me looks like antifreeze making its way over into the oil sump. And he said, oh, I'm not really sure about that, but the machine shop will know. So this will get wrapped up. This will go to the machine shop on Saturday. It's Thursday right now at lunchtime. There's the head itself. Let's see. I don't see any glaring issues. Right there. That's where no, that's not it. Let's see. That would be corresponding to the gasket of fluid potentially coming through the water jacket down into the head. Well, have the machine shop take a look at it. Make sure everything looks good. If that's the case, that the stain on the gasket is indicating water leaking from the water jacket into the sump, I would think that because the gasket doesn't seem to be compromised, it's just showing the stain on it, that would mean that potentially the head has got a bit of a warp to it. So when I bring it to Rogers Automotive in Brantford, he'll take a look at both the gasket and the head, and he'll let me know what's up with it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they come back and say that there was an overheating issue. The head got a little warped, and as a result, it's been leaking fluid into the sump there. So we'll find out. All right, cost this time around came in at $4238.95, and everything, all my costs associated this time around have been for Amazon tools purchased off Amazon. I purchased a coolant pressure tester kit for $85.62, a screw and bolt extractor set for $46.61, a 12 millimeter Allen head wrench, which is used to remove the little brass covers that are inset into the cam cover housings, which give you access to the head bolts underneath. A bunch of magnets for $29.76. I think that's 20 magnets. And a drill bit set, brand new drill bit set, given that my existing drill bit set is pretty dull and I didn't want to screw this up. Anyway, the total came to $44.24.16 thus far, And I'm sure those costs are going to start rising now that I'm going to be utilizing machine shop services and buying parts as I start to reassemble this thing. Thanks for watching.